Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. A surprising roster change going into the final week of Major 2 qualifiers as Davpadie is back, baby. OpTic Gaming are shaking in their boots at this one, but Florida Mutineers have made a change. Brack, though, is the man to make way from that team. Arguably their best player so far. Scump and others certainly don't seem convinced this is the best move for the roster. Very much enjoy your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I'd greatly appreciate it. So we had some rookies last season, of which Davpadie was one. Had a decent rookie season, all things considered, but of course, plenty of criticism was levelled his way, and I thought it was kind of cool to see Road to Rookie of the Year. So far, Scrappy is surely the top candidate. It's going to be difficult to top this guy, of course. Vikul's been pretty good as well so far for the Mutineers. I would argue that possibly you've got to look at a guy like JoeDeceives, or I think Exceed is technically maybe considered a rookie because he was very briefly involved during the Modern Warfare season a few years ago. But I'd say, you know, if there's anyone going to challenge Scrappy, it might be JoeDeceives or something if Los Angeles Guerrillas have a particularly good run. Of course, they actually were on the same Challengers team last year at the Trollcha NA Academy, and, you know, my Spanish bold brother, he can't kill me, but he's all right. So, obviously, you know, that's kind of the situation this season. Now, this is the standings, right, going into the final week of Major 2 qualifiers. New York Subliners topping it up, Toronto, FaZe. I would say those are the top 3 teams in the game, unless you want to put OpTic in there, which is understandable as well. I think those would be the top 4, and by the end of the major, I'd expect to see a more representative numbers from that, certainly from the OpTic side, with the way they're currently playing. But towards the bottom here, you've got to consider some of these teams aren't looking so good. After Major 2, even Rokkr, they have a fair few points, but they haven't been impressive lately. Surge in a similar boat. And then you get down to teams like Boston, Mutineers, Legion, certainly Ravens, that all right now are kind of struggling. But I thought most of these teams would say, you know what, let's run it into the major, see what happens, because at the end of the day, these are just online qualifiers. You can read a fair bit into them, but you can't read everything into them. See what happens at the major. If you perform, underperform, then we can think about roster changes, right? Because I imagine that if these teams want to make changes, they might want to make swaps, or, you know, trades don't really happen, but some sort of exchange of players between different teams could happen after Major 2. But some teams, well, the Mutineers so far, have bit the bullet before they were even getting to Major 2. Davpadie's back in business. If you guys are brand new to the CDL, you won't know about Davpadie. He was around last year, of course, on the Mutineers team as well, and was known for being pretty much the slowest player in the league. Aches had this whole gimmick that he would go 70-something in 70-something every single series, and that was pretty much true, to be honest. Map 4, Map 5 didn't seem to matter. Davpadie was going 75 in 72 pretty much without exception, while the rest of his team would have more engagements than that. Now, I don't know if Davpadie, like, kind of naturally is as slow of a player as he was playing for the Mutineers last year, but there was this whole thing with Mutineers loving a good AR player, a good slow AR player, and they seem to have not forgotten about their love for this type of individuals. They confirmed last night, welcome back to the league, Davpadie. Now, confirming in the replies that it's Brack who's been dropped. To me, this is a big surprise, right? Because if there's, look, Davpadie is a slow-ish AR player. I thought if anyone was to make way here, it might have to be Major Maniac, just because if you're, you know, bringing in a slow AR, you probably want to take out a slow AR, theoretically. But it's not what they're going for. They're taking Brack out, which is a big surprise to many, because Brack seemed to me and to many others to be basically their best player so far. He was, well, he was a revelation, really, Brack, during the Black Ops 4 season when he came into the scene. Was great on the start of the season at Midnight Esports. I think he might have gone to Accelerate Gaming as well. Then he was on Luminosity towards the ends, and there was this kind of stigma around Brack at the time, and the other pro players, you know, seemed to buy into this, that Brack was playing a bit too much for kills and not so much for the win, and therefore that stigma kind of remained with him over the last few years, when he hasn't actually got a chance back in the CDL until this year, where he comes back into the Mutineers, and I think Brack has done a great job so far. However, he's now gone, dropped from the team, and Davpadie is back in business. Now, I don't mind bringing Davpadie in. I just think the one-man change they've made here is very strange and surprising, and doesn't seem entirely justified, especially when you've played 2 weeks of these qualifiers. There's 1 week still to go. They're not in a great position, but it could be worse. I mean, I think they've lost 2 out of the 3 series they played. They're 1-2 so far in the qualifiers. They beat LAG. I think they lost to New York and maybe Toronto as well. So those are respectable losses in a way. I mean, losing to Toronto and New York is not exactly surprising, and then beating LAG is pretty successful, pretty impressive right now. So just surprised they made a change now. Okay, fair enough. Mutineers are one of these teams that they never seem to be able to really get to the next level. They'd always have a good upset one time or another, a game 5 against OpTic or whatever, and then it will keep the team going. It's the same thing they've done for the last couple of years, really, since they had great success back in Modern Warfare with an entirely different team. But I thought it would have been justified to say, okay, you know what, we'll just run it into the major, see what happens, because right now they're the 8th seed, right? I mean, they are qualifying for the winners bracket just about as it stands, and then see what happens after the major. If they bomb at the major, then fair enough, make a change. But even then, then is this change the one to go for? So as Davpadie says, officially back starting for the Mutineers. Grateful for this opportunity. Hopefully he can take advantage of it. But, you know, as many are saying, okay, this seems strange to me. Getting rid of Brack here now. I mean, look, I don't think that changing up the SMG line was necessarily the way to go. Vikul is relatively early on in his CDL career. He's been pretty solid. I think give him some chances. Havoc to me is probably the X factor here. He's had some great series. He's had some stinkers as well. But I still think Havoc has been one of their better players. So I think the SMG line is okay. It's probably never going to be championship winning, but, you know, it is what it is. This is the Mutineers, baby. But now we've got Major Maniac and Davpadie on the ARs. I mean, this is surely just going to be a slugfest, right? I mean, there's no way that these guys aren't just going to be crawling around the map. And Brack, in terms of the numbers, of the engagement numbers, we'll see in a second, was actually not particularly slow. Brack was actually kind of fast on this team. Is Davpadie going to be as fast as Brack? I think Dave is a good player, and I don't think we saw kind of all of what he was capable of last year. But Major Maniac has not been especially impressive. Yes, he does add the element of the search and destroy clutch factor, which without him you do probably lose. But at the same time, he's not been particularly good in the respawns, so that's where the questions are being raised here. So very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. These were Davpadie's numbers in 2022, 1.03 season KD average placing. Of course, his key statistic, as I mentioned right at the start of the video, is that he is undefeated against OpTic and Scump on LAN. And we'll see Scump's response to that here in a second, stating that, oh yeah, he knew Davpadie was coming back and therefore he decided to retire before Dave can take him down again. We'll see if OpTic can, you know, if Davpadie can retain this record against OpTic, because it's a rather impressive one. But these were some of the series results we have seen so far this season. This was their victory against LAG, their one victory so far this stage. Brack had a 1.46, most damage in the lobby, 92 kills. Havoc was right there as well at 100 kills. He had a great series. And, you know, Maniac with a 0.82. So it just seems a bit strange. The one series they won against a team that's actually doing very well right now in Los Angeles, Guerrillas. Brack was pretty much the standout player of the series up there with Havoc, and yet he's getting dropped from the team. These are the numbers then. So this is the numbers so far this season. Brack has the highest KD in the hardpoint, the highest KD in the search and destroy, and the highest KD in the control. KD isn't everything, but when you compare that with the engagement numbers, he is quite significantly faster in terms of engagements per 10 minutes than Major Maniac is. In search and destroy, he also has a higher first blood percentage, and in controller, he has slightly lower engagements per 10 minutes here. So, you know, maybe there's a conversation to be had there. But nonetheless, minus Brack seems a very strange decision right now, and I'm sure a lot of you guys agree. And he has the highest kills per 10 minutes by a significant margin over his teammate there. So, yeah, I don't really understand it. I don't exactly see the justification, to be honest. And these, for example, are Davpadie's numbers last year, where Davpadie was by far and away. Now, last year, there was more engagements for 10 minutes than they are this year, largely because, you know, people used to play Bacard and these crazy fast-paced maps. But relative, at least to his teammates, Davpadie was far slower in engagements for 10 minutes than everyone. And, you know, same story pretty much in the control, apart from, you know, Skies was there as well. So as JoeDeceives says, we'd love to someone to actually explain the reasoning behind this. It seems like one of the strangest moves that we have ever seen. And Scump actually responds to this and says, yeah, okay, we don't exactly know what's going on internally within that camp and why they decided to make this move. But he doesn't exactly seem convinced that it's a particularly good idea, but also does say that Davpadie returning is the reason why he stepped into retirement early.
But it's a misconception. Just because someone's like doing well, and I'm not saying anything against Brack. Again, I'm not saying anything against Brack because Brack was doing his thing. We don't know what the is going on inside of that camp. And we never will. We're not in that camp. We're not flies on the wall. We don't see what their day-to-day's looking like. Did you retire so you don't have to play Davpadie? Bingo, Sam. Bingo. Something about that guy. I said it. That guy's intimidating.
Funny response here, I thought, from X, actually. I mean, I got a tip that he said to the replies, just looking at this team and thinking, okay, what is happening here? So, I mean, I will give credit to the Mutineers. They did a banging announcement video for his return. But, yeah, the justification is super questionable from my perspective. I don't quite understand it. The thing is, you know, poor guy like Hicksy as well, because Hicksy's been there in the challenger side for quite some time now. He was a substitute last year for Toronto, and he's still a substitute for them now. He actually made a brief appearance, you guys might remember last year. Was it Bance that was unwell or Cammy that was unwell or something? There was one match last year, I think it was against Florida, that Hicksy stepped in for, and they 3-0'd them in like the closest 3-0 of all time. Like every single map went down right to the wire. It's like 250, 249, 6-5, 3-2 or something crazy like that. But yeah, so Hicksy has been, well, teaming in challenges, I guess, with Davpadie, and now he's got another teammate that's been plucked away from him. And it's not like Florida were in an absolutely disastrous position. This is how the standings currently look in terms of what would be happening for the major. Now, this is highly unlikely to stay the same going into the final week, but Jacob L puts puts together here. This is what the bracket would currently look like if the standings stayed as they are going after the third week. That's not going to happen. There'll be some changes, but still, OpTic right now are the first seed. They could remain the same. Florida also could theoretically remain the same as well in that 8th seed they're currently in, which would mean there would be OpTic versus Florida round 1 of the major. And I don't know, maybe Ogre2, who's making the calls over there at Florida, saw this and was like, all right, guys, Davpadie's come back in. We've got to take down OpTic on LAN, but it's not guaranteed to happen. But this is what the bracket would look like. OpTic Mutineers, Guerrillas, Subliners, Ultra versus Rokkr, Breach versus FaZe, but it's very hotly contested up there for which teams actually get to winners. And then the losers bracket is kind of crazy, right? Okay, London and Legion will probably be here almost certainly, unless London turn it around or Legion do massively. But then Thieves and Surge also probably starting in losers. They could turn it around, but based on the percentage chances, at least, 3 or 4 of these teams are probably going to be in losers starting on Boston. And I guess just while I'm here, we'll have a quick look then at Mutineer's schedule. So their schedule for this final week is actually pretty good. And this is one of the things why they beat Los Angeles Guerrillas in a game 5. Surely with that former team with Brack, you'd have thought they could also have beaten London as they're playing in their first match on Friday. And they play Boston on Saturday, which is also a winnable game. So I don't know, maybe they're thinking, okay, bring Davpadie in, pack a punch the roster for 2 matches that should be winnable, certainly the first one. And if they beat London, they will be, there's a decent chance they end up being the 8th seed there. And OpTic, of course, play Vegas and FaZe, after which they could, maybe will still be the first seed. So there is a chance. And speaking of OpTic, actually, in relation to Boston, it has been confirmed now that, as OpTic say here, see you in Boston for Major 2, special Scump co-streams throughout the weekends, exclusive merch at our booth and more. It's not exactly sure what the setup's going to be there at Boston, because obviously the Flank did the co-stream at Major 1 in Raleigh. The CDL helped them orchestrate that. I'm guessing they're going to maybe have a double setup or something that Boston can help them out with. I think it's probably a smaller venue than the venue will be, for example, at the OpTic's Major and Major 3 in Arlington, Texas. So we'll see how they get this to work, but I thought a nice graphic here. I'm guessing this is I'm not particularly familiar with the history of the Boston Tea Party and the like, but I did think it was kind of interesting that, this reply here from Filthy Milk. Fun fact, Paul Revere, which is, I guess, who Scump's replacing here with this image, and John Adams, who is actually, this is the mad thing that I saw the other day, that I was trying to find a good reason to mention, but I couldn't really find where it fit in, but it fits in quite well with this. So John Adams, the second president of the United States, is apparently related to Crimsix on his father's side. So and basically he's really into this and saying, okay, it's a little Easter egg to me that OpTic Crimsix is officially going to be a thing again, which I hope it is, but maybe it won't happen yet. I think there's going to be a few months maybe for those wounds to still heal. But yeah, Crimsix mentioned the other day that on his father's side, he's related to John Adams, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, just thought a little bit of trivia to close out the video with. But hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.
Yo, Mr. Beast with 100 gifted, bro. Dude, thank you for the love, man. I really appreciate it. Oh, sorry, guys. I didn't know.
Jimmy, is that you?
Dude,
Just call him by his first name. Jimmy, what's up? What?
J-Dog.
What the?
Hey, me and Kat won a tournament together. Can you say that?
You have 1 safe remaining. Get moving.
I mean,
You've got
nah, I
a
can't.
drop inbound.
Hey, you know what I'm saying? We beat T-Pain and Formal in the finals.
Oh, nah, bro. I got it, bro.
I'm not even kidding. That's the best part.
Oh, nah, bro.
That's the most random assortment of names I've ever heard.
Yeah, that's great.